What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roost. So I'm going to review the fourth album by rap rock band Hollywood Undead. Basically, this project is called Day of the Dead, and it came out in the spring of 2015. So the thing about this particular project is just the fact that after this particular project is a little bit past Hollywood Undead's early years as far as the pitch goes along with it after their MySpace days and pitches like that, the early 2010s, some of those type pitches as far as that particular one. I would definitely say some of that early type stuff. I did like Hollywood Tragedy from 2011. That was pretty good. Alan Swan Songs is definitely like a late 2000s classic. I'd have to say for the most part, just made a lot of noise. Definitely had some aspect of type stuff with Deuce and some pitches like that. Desperate Measures was pretty good from 2009. The last project that really had Deuce on there. For the most part, I'd have to say some good pitches like that. Then I would have to say basically Notes from the Underground. I think the album from 2013 was a relatively high score that I gave that particular project. I reviewed that back in August. Don't remember as much. Haven't bought it yet, but I'm gonna have to say I'm gonna have to get around to purchasing that particular product because I think I want to say I like the good assortment of those particular songs on there. But Hollywood Undead usually manages to chart on their particular albums as far as that pitching goes. But this particular album had like 7 singles on it, so it's definitely packed to the gills full of promotion as far as that particularly went along with it. Just some excellent type stuff to get here. The actual album, the standard edition, this album's gonna get a classic score just because I feel like the impact behind this and the overall appeal of it's pretty damn high. I'd say in particular, this is definitely some inspired Hollywood Undead. I definitely have to say in particular, this has a lot of good aspects about it that just shine through extremely well. I'd have to say this is up there with Swan Songs and probably I do think it's better than American Tragedy and probably better than also like Notes from the Underground from what I remember from it. But I would have to say Hollywood Undead usually has some pretty good batches of albums here. I would have to say in particular they have a lot of good. Their track record is pretty excellent. It's just too bad that they didn't chart more often. It's just too bad that they didn't chart more often towards the late 2010s and pitches like that. I had to say it's just an excellent type concept kind of get this particular project. I do feel like the deluxe edition is somewhat lacking. Not to say it's lacking. I mean, this album's going to get a classic score, but there's 3 or 4 extra songs that are kind of on the deluxe edition. I kind of feel like there's one of which out of those 4 that's pretty hit quality. I'd have to say pretty much one of their best songs. I'd have to say with a real good batch of discs it's overall excellence as far as that goes. But the other 3 songs in the deluxe edition, including the iTunes song that's not on like the standard, that's not on like the standard deluxe, but it's on like the iTunes deluxe with 16 songs. I'd have to say 3 of those, yeah, 3 of those 4 songs are just kind of the subpar ones on here. But yeah, this is a pretty excellent album, full of promotion, boisterous type stuff here. It's interesting enough just because 2015, this was just kind of a strange time for rap rock music in particular. When you get past like Korn and pitches like that, Korn was in kind of a dry period around this time after their paradigm shift down from late 2013, and Limp Bizkit was kind of swashed up around this particular time as far as that kind of went. They're struggling to put out Stampede to the Disco Elf, and so rap rock was kind of in an awkward space around that particular point. Godsmack wasn't around some of those type folks. I'm trying to think of some other folks that were kind of doing rap rock. Not too many, like POD wasn't really doing much around this time. Maybe they were, but this wasn't quite as boisterous as it was in the early 2000s. So this is just a good kind of pitch because I kind of feel like Hollywood Undead was one of the flagship kind of feel like Hollywood Undead was one of the flagship rap rock bands of like the 2010s as far as that particular kind of went. They just had a lot of good stuff just within a lot of those fields as far as that kind of goes. Just the concept, I mean, between Swan Songs being a massive hit and American Tragedy having like 7 singles off of that was a pretty big deal. Danny did a pretty good job with his comeback of replacing Deuce as far as that particular kind of went. And just they charted throughout the early 2010s, but this is just a concept where rap rock was just kind of in a different stage kind of being more amalgamated with standard formats as far as like rock chart radio kind of went. I feel like some of these songs picked up on the radio, but it just feels like maybe minus like Day of the Dead, the title track single that was the lead single off this album. It just felt like some of these they did have a lot of singles, but I just kind of questioned the overall like hard appeal that this particular project kind of had. I'm just gonna go ahead and look that up just to kind of confirm that, just to be able to. I guess they did have some charting hits here. So like on the Hot Rock Digital charts, they did have about 5 or 6 songs out of the 7 singles that charted pretty well. So it's just the concept. They're just a lot more low key and underground. They kind of have their fanfare and their acclaim as far as that particular kind of goes, but they never quite reach like the full blown boisterous appeal that they had like in 2008 and 2009, which is not a bad thing. They do definitely have some rock chart gems and pitches like that. I'd say, but it's just kind of the concept that they're just kind of more off to the wayside, and it's just kind of more an if you know you know type territory. But we'll go ahead and talk about the singles here. So yeah, basically there were 7 of these. So the first single is Day of the Dead. This is a real nice one. I recommend all 7 of the singles. That's a pretty good pitch. Like I said, this album's going to get a classic score, especially the standard edition. This is a steady kind of gets you pumped evening pizzazz of a song I'd have to say in particular. It's like some finishing up work shift commerce I'd have to say, and this is a pretty good rock chart gem. So it's definitely a nice one. This charted pretty well on like the rock charts. This hit 17 on like the standard rock charts, pretty good pitch. This is typical type fare. This is a typical type fare for like Hollywood Undead on like the rock charts as far as the particular kind of went. But this is just some good stuff. This is a pretty good hit. This kind of reminds me of some of the stuff that they did with like the lead single off of American Tragedy. I forget the name of it, but like the lead single, the typical type stuff, kind of like a song like Young, in between like a stretching type, this like a more stretching type evening shift type song, something like I forget the name of the song, but something like Young or one of those type ones. Like the first single that you hear off of American Tragedy, I'd say one of those type pitches in particular. I'll probably have it in the connotation as far as that kind of goes, but it is a nice and pretty standard rock chart type hit that works pretty well. Usual Suspects is a real nice one. This is probably one of my favorite songs in the album. I'd say it's like a superb kind of distorted electronic blitz of a song. I'd have to say it's a great song to get tore up to. I would definitely feel like, and this just has a vintage kind of Hollywood Undead hook. Pretty dope song. So thing about this album in particular is Danny Boy has some real good hooks on this particular album. I'd have to say some songs like Usual Suspects, Gravity. I feel like there's a few other ones like I think Party by Myself is a pretty nice one. There's like maybe that one doesn't have Danny on the hook on there, but there's some particularly nice ones on there that do have some good ones. I just would have to say maybe like War Child's a pretty nice one. Take Me Home, some of those particular type ones. I just would have to say there's some good ones on here, especially some of these up tempo ones. I feel like Danny really has some ferocious hooks on some of these up tempo type ones. Where Day of the Dead is more of a stretcher, but Usual Suspects are pretty just in the Usual Suspects is just kind of more in the moment type one. Definitely one for like a nightclub pitch, just like that, just for like 10:30 midnight. Some of those type fares as far as that kind of goes. It's a real nice one. This pitch of energy. The third single, Gravity, is a good follow up to that as well. This is another of my favorites on the album. I'd have to say it's like an in motion kind of dance gem. I'd have to say it's somewhat makeshift, but somewhat turn up. I'd have to say so. It's a good concept, kind of some in between. This is just like a get loose, drinks up, kind of out and about type tune. It has the same particular, and this works overall pretty well with that kind of. This overall works pretty well with that relative pitch, I'd have to say. So it's a good concept. So this one is kind of like one that's kind of just after work type pitch as far as that kind of goes. Just some relative late makeshift as far as I would kind of go. Just the concept of just being a little bit thrilled, maybe like 6:30, 5:30 p.m., just wrapping things up, pitches like that. A little bit more of like party in mind, more so than Day of the Dead. I'd have to say a little bit more loosened up compared to Day of the Dead, but also not quite as crazy as Usual Suspects. So it's an in between type one, but it works pretty well. It's like a pretty glitzy single. This is another nice hook on there that has some good stuff. I'd have to say real pitch type one that just should get you excited pretty well. How We Roll is the fourth single. It's a real nice one. This is like a more backyard type number. Some pitches like that. It's like a power rock kind of stadium like outdoor noise of a song that had to say in particular. It's like some good backyard kind of smoke a few, kind of hangout highlight of a song that had to say, and this is just a pretty good hit. So it's a pretty nice one. It's typical kind of fanfare, some of the stuff that, like Korn and Marilyn Manson, folks like that kind of do. Rob Zombie, just more backyard pitches of just smoking, having some barbecue pitches like that. Just kind of enjoying summer, some of those type things. This would have to say some good concept. This one's a little bit more, I mean, this one's not as work shift, I'd have to say. It's just kind of a concept of being like some social commotion, but just not as much in traverse and in vehicle minded. I'd have to say it's just a good concept, kind of get some of this just more in just kind of ground and pitches like that, just kind of an outdoor type commotion, just summer pitches and festivals, barbecues, things like that. Live Forever is a pretty nice one. It's like a steady kind of glitzy late day commute of a song that has in particular. This is another Traverse type one to kind of get just some good pitches for that. It's like a good rock chart kind of makeshift dredge of a song that had the same particular. And this is just a bustling and kind of thrilling hit, I'd have to say. So this one, Live Forever is another good pairing with like Gravity and Usual Suspects that I'd say is kind of an in between type one that's a little bit of makeshift, but also a little bit of like nightclub type bounce as far as that particular kind of goes. There's some good concepts kind of get. This is a pretty steady song, but this works for like a good paced type appeal. It just works for like a good paced type appeal, just being able to have some of that blitz of just stepping out and just having some good flashes. I'd say just a good concept for that. Really appreciate this one. Just the commerce of this particular song, just some late day commute pitches like that. This really, and this feels like it's made for like the rock charts. I do want to say that this is a charting single on like the Hot Rock digital charts, I would say. So it's a pretty nice one to kind of get here. Just some good after hours type pitch, but also one that should get you excited pretty well, I'd have to say. So it's a nice one. Disease is the sixth single. It's a pretty boppish type one. It's like a lively kind of sports game and outdoor commotion of a song. I had to say in particular. It's like some the song is like some jovial noise for summer activity, I'd have to say in particular. And this is like a basic kind of turn up cut. So it's a pretty nice one. This is just like another outdoor type one, pretty similar to How We Roll. Some of those type pitches. It's more like a sports game type air, basketball, maybe baseball, football game. Some of those type pitches, just somewhere outdoors and out and about, just within that relative pitches. So I'd say just appreciating like barbecue and getting hot dogs and nachos. Some of those type pitches as far as that particular kind of goes. Just some excellent type stuff. Very nice one just overall with the appeal behind it. Some of these just really have some liveliness about it that just works pretty well. I feel like the hook on Live Forever is a pretty pretty nice one. That's another one that's up there with Gravity and Usual Suspects. I'd have to say just the real pace of some of these. Then War Child was the seventh single. It's a pretty boppish type one. It's like a boppish kind of radio ready, late EDM type hit, I'd have to say. And it's just some good social commotion, I would have to say. Get tore up and start the dance noise, I'd have to say in particular. So this one, War Child kind of feels like more vintage, early 2010s Hollywood Undead as far as that pitching goes. It's feel like it's definitely feels in the early days. This pitch just like that. This kind of has the same tempo and snap as something like the Bruno Mars song. I forget what it's called, but it was a #1 hit. Like the same sort of up tempo snap, like Uptown Funk, some pitches like that. The same that same sort of bouncy liveliness that just has that particular pitch. Just a foot tapper pitch, just like that. Just some good dance craze as far as that particular kind of goes. A little bit of EDM in there, I'd have to say. It's interesting, kind of get some. It's interesting to get some of these EDM type hits later on in 2015 as far as that particular kind of went, because folks like Pitbull and Hollywood Undead and Rihanna and some of these type folks were starting to switch up their styles as far as that particular kind of went. But it was just a good concept. Still get some of this type of stuff. I still do appreciate EDM in 2015, 2016, some of those type eras as far as that kind of went. So it's just like a late. So this is just like a late EDM type hit and an overall social quality type song that just has a lot of bounce and commotion about it. I have to say, pretty good concept. So basic concept about this particular album, past the singles, I'd have to say me recommending all 7 of the singles. Basically, out of 12 songs in the standard edition of the album, I like all 12 of the songs minus one of them. The only real song I don't recommend out of the standard 12 song edition is just Dark Places. Just talk about that one real quick. That one was just kind of a murky. I feel like Dark Places was just kind of a crummier rendition of like the sort of song that like Save Me was trying to be. Save Me just pulled off that particular vibe a little bit better. It was trying to be like a song like Young from Swan Song, some of those type pitches. The second single off of Swan Songs. Young was definitely a pretty excellent type one, just a real starry type one, just within the aspect of just kind of being driven and just some of that kind of car traverse and like the evening type flair as far as that particular kind of went. And that's a good example of what Save Me is, just that same sort of ruminating just within a relatively gloomy and kind of moody type sense, but it does have some of that pep about it. But War Child, or not War, Dark Places just didn't pull off that vibe quite as well, I'd have to say. That's the only real song I didn't enjoy. So yeah, the standard edition is going to get a 10 out of 10, but then the deluxe edition, talk about the 3 songs I didn't recommend here. So the 4 songs that are extra on this particular project would be Guzzle Guzzle, I'll Be There, Let Go, and Ghost. And out of those 4 extra songs, the only song that I recommend out of the deluxe edition songs would just be Guzzle Guzzle. The other 3 songs, I'll Be There, Let Go, and Ghost, are all kind of poor type ones. I really feel like I'll Be There is just kind of a relatively weak kind of just, I'll Be There is just a relatively weak kind of just homely type song that just didn't really have that much appeal. It's trying to be like a pop rap type tune that just didn't pull off the vibes quite as well as it needed to. I feel like they nailed those kind of songs just better on American Tragedy, I had to say. Let Go is just kind of like a starry kind of power ballad type one, just for like some power pop type, rock chart type hit, but it just didn't pull off the vibe nearly as well as Young and some of those type ones that Hollywood Undead just did better. I feel like that type fare was just a little bit flat this time. I mean, there's some songs that did it like Save Me and some of those type ones. There's another one on that I don't remember. Probably Day of the Dead, like the title track, the lead single probably did it a lot better for that one. Let Go just didn't. And then Ghost was just kind of a crummy type one. I don't know what that production was trying to be. It was just one of the worst productions on this particular album. That's saying something just because there's not a ton of horror productions on here. But that was just one of the few ones that was just pretty much overall a full blown dud, I'd have to say. So I just look after I'll just talk about the rest of these songs here. So yeah, basically Guzzle Guzzle is one of the album's best songs, I'd have to say in particular. This one goes extremely hard and this is like a snarling dance hit, I'd have to say, and this is just like a get super crank kind of song, I'd have to say. So it's definite great song to get tore up to. Goes great with Usual Suspects and Gravity and Live Forever, some of those type ones. Guzzle Guzzle is one of the most fierce kind of party songs on this particular album. Just a great one to completely get blitzed and pitches like that. Just some excellent type stuff. Another good highlight for that relative pitch that's up there, probably one of the best songs in the album. Once again, another good rave house party type hit would be Party by Myself. This is a pretty nice one to kind of get. Just like the lyrics on this particular song, it's like a nice approachable kind of get tip. It's like a nice approachable kind of get tipsy bop. It had to say in particular, this has a gnarly kind of EDM flair about this particular song. Another good late EDM type hit, I'd have to say, and this is definitely one of the album's fiercest paces, I'd have to say. So this is just a real complete kind of get blitzkrieg type of affair as far as that particular kind of goes. Just some excellent type stuff here to kind of get. Just the excellence of this particular song is just pretty sure, I'd have to say. So if you do dislike getting crunk, but other folks don't want to join in as far as that particular kind of goes, it's just an excellent type concept, kind of get fucked up anyway as far as that particular kind of goes. Is would like this attitude to kind of be suited to more folks as far as that particular kind of goes, because some folks are just like, well, I'm not getting fucked up. Nowadays with this more healthy mindset that's kind of going on, this is just an excellent type one. Need to get back to some of these mindsets from back in 2015 and the early 2010s as far as that kind of goes. This is just an excellent type one to get tore up to a pitch like that. This really has some good overall exuberant type feelings that works. Another nice glitzy highlight would be Does Everybody in the World Have to Die? I'd say it's a pretty nice one. It's like a crunchy kind of late night club snarl of a song I'd have to say in particular. It's like some midnight fun I'd have to say, and this is just like a real good after hours hit. So this is definitely probably one of the fiercest songs on this particular album in terms of like the nightclub snarl and pitches like that. I'd say just real nice driven type one that really has some good aspects about it. It's a real crunchy type one to kind of get. It's real good bounce about it. It's real nice apple type one just for the after hours. Just some excellent type stuff to kind of get just for like some good midnight type appeals and just overall night traverse pitches like that. It's a good concept for that. Just another stock one. It's somewhat vanilla just with an aspect as compared to some of these ones. I do feel like Party by Myself, Guzzle Guzzle, Gravity, Usual Suspects are a little. I mean, this one's probably at just relatively as crazy, but this is more basic and kind of the execution and the quality behind it. But it's still a pretty nice one. It's just a good stock, another hit. Not complaining about the quality because this album does get a 10 out of 10, at least the standard edition, but it's just kind of concept about it. Save Me is a pretty nice one. This is a pretty favorable type track on here. I did like this one despite the fact that it's not really like a nightclub type track or just like some social kind of glitz about it. I'd say it's like a Glaze kind of vintage HU type hit, I'd have to say, from like the Deuce days that had the same particular. Danny really sounds pretty damn similar to Deuce on this particular song. Just really nails that particular pitch of how he would do his hooks as far as that particular kind of went. This is just like a good glaring kind of ruminating song that had the same particular. And this is just like a solid traverse and makeshift type song to kind of get. So this is definitely pretty similar to Young off of Swan songs, I'd have to say. Some of those type ones off of American Tragedy, some of those type ones are just more starry eyed and just more driven, like the evening shift of just like car traverse just within the late work shift and just got done with work as far as that kind of goes. There's some pitches like that. Really appreciate the Glaze type songs on here. There's not a ton of haunting songs, despite the fact that this album's called Day of the Dead. There's not actually like a ton of just more haunting kind of autumn type music on here. A lot of this is just kind of more warm weather pitches like that. I had to say it's not as much winter bound and autumn bound. I'd have to say, but it's just kind of the concept I just would have to suppose. There's some good pitches, but I do feel like the sheer number of haunting songs, apart from maybe Does Everybody in the World Have to Die and Save Me, for the most part, this is actually a pretty clean and just vanilla type project in terms of rap rock and just pitches like that. I mean, it's underground definitely, but this actually has some commercial breakouts. Just to be able to say, it's just like some commercial kind of rap rock charts that's underground, but also is about more commercial underground as you would get. I'd say it's just kind of a meld of in between where it is underground, but it's good enough to kind of know about, but still low key, I'd have to say. So it's this kind of concept. It's tougher to explain, but it's this kind of concept. It's just something that is alternative, but it has some commercial bite about it. It has to say. So that's a good concept. But basically, Take Me Home's another highlight off this particular album. I'd have to say this is another nice one. It's like a driven, kind of good makeshift rock chart commotion. I'd have to say in particular. This is just some evening pep, I'd have to say, and the song energy is pretty affable. I'd have to suppose in particular, and this is just some good thunder. So the background vocals on this particular chorus and pitches like that, it's another one that Danny really excels on as far as that particular kind of goes. There's some excellent type stuff to kind of get here. Really has some great melodies on it, just overall driven type of appeal. This is another one that feels pretty similar to like Disease and pitches like that. Just the affability behind this particular song could almost be like a sports game type flair as far as the particular kind of goes. Just some good makeshift kind of car drivers just within that sense. There are some makeshift songs in here. This is another nice one for that relative pitch. Not quite as full blown exuberant just within the aspect of just having like the boisterous kind of craziness, but it's still pretty nice one to kind of get for just like some good makeshift just kind of excitement, I'd have to say. So it's a good concept. But yeah, the standard edition of this album, me recommending 11 out of 12 songs on here. This album's going to get a 10 out of 10, but me recommending 12 songs out of 16 on this particular album. I'd have to say I'd probably give this album, the deluxe edition with 16 songs, I'd probably give this album like a 9.25 out of 10, something like that. I mean, if it had been 13 out of 16, it probably would have gotten a 10 out of 10, but I'm just going to go ahead and give like the deluxe edition. I'll go ahead and give the deluxe edition like a 9.25. I mean, it could almost get a 9.5, but whatever. It's just, there's still 4 songs I didn't recommend on here, so just being able to say it's a pretty relatively good pitch. I don't really thoroughly recommend the deluxe edition because most of these songs kind of bombed in disc in particular. I'd have to say I would recommend probably just buying like Guzzle Guzzle digitally, some pitches like that. That's really the only real song that I would say full blown that you would need within that aspect, unless you're looking for more pop rap and just kind of more ornamental kind of disc. Unless you're just looking for more ornamental type vanilla pop rap, I'd have to say in particular. But it's just good enough concept. 9.25 is nothing to sneeze at. I'd have to say in particular, pretty excellent concept. I'd have to say obviously the 10 out of 10 score for the standard edition is something to be paid attention to. So that's a good enough concept. The social score, I'm going to go ahead and give the social score, of course, like a 10 out of 10 just because I feel like the aspect behind it is just pretty sheer. I'd have to say plenty of good glitzy type songs. The makeshift on this particular album really works pretty well. There's definitely some songs on here like Take Me Home and Disease and like How We Roll and some of those type ones, and Day of the Dead, the title track that pretty much do have like some standard work shift kind of commotion and pitches like that. I'd say just some excellent type stuff to kind of get here. Plenty of good thrilling type songs to kind of get cranked to and pitches like that. They're still pretty crazy party animals as far as that particular kind of goes. They haven't changed from the Swan Song days, so that's some pretty good, definitely pretty catchy concepts. They got some songs for ladies on here and pitches like that. Some great songs to get tore up to. The fact that Danny's able to mimic Deuce pretty damn well and do pitches like that, and even have some good hook approaches of his own. This is pretty excellent concepts. I do definitely feel like Danny definitely has some Deuce quality hooks on here, and just overall he's a pretty quality hook artist, I'd have to say. So he definitely has some vast kind of skill in this particular project that's to be appreciated. And the rest of the band does pretty well. Johnny Three Tears and some of these folks like Charlie Scene and some of those type folks. I forget all their particular type names, but just a bunch of these folks really do have some good approaches as far as that kind of goes. So some excellent stuff. In terms of the future, like Hollywood Undead's been gone since 2022. They've dropped a number of projects. I've got some more to get to. I'm going to get to eventually 5, which was the first project that I heard when I was initially messing with Hollywood Undead, apart from Swan Songs that I have to say. So I'm going to get to that one eventually down the road as far as that kind of goes. We'll get to some more Hollywood Undead. We'll have to see if the rest of their later albums stack up as quality as these early ones, because these first 4 albums I've heard from them, including the EPs that or with Deuce and pitches like that, I'd say, and also including like the remix album Desperate Measures, I'd say a lot of these were pretty quality. A lot of this, some pretty sheer stuff. That they had some pretty exuberant kind of heydays as far as that kind of goes. So there's just some excellent type of stuff here just to add to that particular legacy. But hopefully we get some more hits, pitches like that. They had some pretty good rock chart hits. They got to the 7th single, pitches like that. So I do easily, this is a classic out of the mid 2010s, I'd have to say, especially out of new era rock music as far as that particularly kind of goes. So this is easy to kind of this is an easy project to kind of gab about here.